Discovered my husband's secret affair and illegitimate child through an old friend. Now I've filed for divorce with slam dunk evidence. Yesterday, my world was turned upside down. I'm 26, and I got one of those dreaded "hey girly" DMs from G, an old college friend, who's 27. I hadn't talked to her in ages, and I honestly thought she was still in another city, but apparently she moved here about 8 months ago. She didn't beat around the bush. She sent me screenshots of messages, explicit sex with my husband, R, 28, and, to top it off, actual selfies of them together after they slept together. I mean, why would someone ever take those? There they were, though, proof I couldn't ignore. I've been so caught up with work lately, barely at home, but I still thought R was my soulmate. I never dreamed he could do something so fundamentally cruel. My hands were shaking as I confronted R. To his credit, or maybe his shame, he owned up to everything immediately. Turns out, what was supposed to be a friendly dinner with G when she first moved spiraled quickly. They'd started sleeping together and, soon enough, he was dating her. Yes, dating. He never told her about me, never mentioned his wife of 4 years, or our 3 years of dating before that. In fact, he doesn't post about me at all because his social media is all fitness business, so she just assumed he was single, a fit, hot, very available bachelor. Things got out of hand when G started talking about marriage and kids. That's when I started getting cagey, making up lies about an ex-wife who might cause problems if they got married. The ex-wife, of course, being me, still his very real legal wife. It all came to a dramatic and horrifying head because, wait for it, G is 3 months pregnant. She thought she and I were exclusive and hasn't been with anyone else, so the baby is definitely his. When G got suspicious, she googled my name and discovered the bombshell truth. Not only are R and I still together, but we're actually married. 4 years as his wife, 3 more years as his girlfriend, all destroyed by one message. I threw her out on the spot. He tried to argue, but he knew he didn't have a leg to stand on. He's crashing at a friend's, and after all those nights I spent lurking online, I texted him every single reason he was out, so there's a written record where he flat out apologizes and admits everything. The evidence is all there. What's crazy is that, since the truth came out, G and I have been talking. Weirdly enough, we've gotten close these last couple days. We're both processing what happened and honestly, leaning on each other is helping us both survive the nuclear fallout. There's no doubt about what I'm doing. I'm divorcing him. G wants nothing to do with her either, except for the child support she'll be demanding. I had her come by tomorrow for a talk, and first thing this morning, I contacted a lawyer and sent her every last shred of evidence. She got back to me in a couple hours, told me it's a slam dunk case, no question. She even offered to connect G with someone in family court, but G hasn't decided if she's ready for that step. She's just as flooded by all this as I am. I'm just thankful I never had kids with that cheating piece of garbage, and honestly, I know I'll be just fine. I'm young, I'm hot, and R is now officially the grossest guy I've ever known. No advice needed, I know exactly where I'm going from here. Update 1. Last night, I found myself tangled in a furious argument with her over the phone. He didn't hold back, hurling insults at me, calling me a bitch for breaking up with him, and tossing out every nasty thing he could muster. I couldn't sleep. Anxiety clawed at me all night, my mind racing. In the haze and sleeplessness, I started doing what so many have advised, putting some serious distance between myself and G, but she sensed the shift instantly, and everything exploded. Suddenly, G was raging, furious, betrayed. She revealed that she'd known about me for a while. Mutual friends on Instagram had let it slip. My own profile is private, but friends and family had shared our wedding photos and celebrations. That's how G found out about my marriage, and it hit like a bomb. When I woke up in the morning, my phone was flooded with texts from her. Among them, one that cut deep. She called me a fake bitch, accused me of making up circumstances and lying about the details. I'd had enough. I blocked her right there. Through all this, I had tried to be as honest as possible, careful in my posts and texts, only emitting what I had to for privacy. Maybe it was the exhaustion, but a petty part of me acted out. Fueled by sleeplessness and spite, I tagged her in an Instagram story, publicly declaring he was a cheater. It didn't take long for people to react. Some messaged me saying they'd unfollowed or blocked him. After 3 hours, I deleted the story, but I know screenshots are out there and the damage is irreversible. Then, early in the morning, R called, wanting to talk. I insisted we do it over text so I'd have everything documented, receipts in hand. Over texts, he agreed to the divorce and would give me almost everything I asked for, mainly our TV and my car, since he'd chipped in on some payments. We never had flashy things besides our gaming consoles, and neither of us wanted the other's gear. Obviously, it wasn't legally binding, but it felt like good ammo for the divorce. R stopped by before work to collect his things and, unexpectedly, we managed a real conversation, face to face, no yelling. He apologized and damn near begged for forgiveness. Remembering all the advice about keeping my dignity, I stayed polite but firm and told him no. He actually accepted it pretty well, then asked if I had any questions, so I shot straight. What the hell happened? He told me everything. Apparently, G reached out to him before she even moved. She'd always known about me, exactly as so many had suspected, but just didn't care. She didn't say outright that she was trying to get pregnant, but according to her friends, she would boast about having unprotected sex with her all the time, which makes this whole thing look even more suspicious. He said, "I just couldn't resist her. Honestly? I'm hotter than her." No doubt. That shallow truth is the only sliver of light in this chaos. And just as so many predicted, G and R are still together. They're keeping the baby, and not long after this mess unfolded, R posted their gender reveal party on his public Instagram. Like I never even existed. Now, he wants rent money from me. There's no way in hell he'll get a cent. In fact, I plan to take nearly everything. He knows he doesn't stand a chance of taking the furniture I paid for or any of my vinyls. Screw him. Great advice has gotten me through, and I'm grateful for that. I've officially cut G out of my life and am working on completely cutting off R outside the divorce process. I'm living comfortably alone in our apartment now. I have a good salary and can support myself. I've already notified the landlord that I'll be ending the lease in 2 months. There's a studio he has available, but I'm not sure if I'll take it yet. Update 2. Divorce is officially in the works now. G is still pregnant, and R's things are completely gone from my house. My landlord, well, calling him understanding would be a massive understatement. Thanks to him, I'm able to stay right where I am. It might not be the drama-filled update everyone was waiting for, but here's the truth, I'm coming out on top. This whole ridiculous mess only made me stronger. Moving on is the best thing I could have done for myself, and I can feel my life getting better already. I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. Update 3. After everything that happened, I feel like my life finally started to settle into something peaceful. When I learned my ex had cheated on me with a friend from college, and that she ended up getting pregnant with his child, it hit me harder than I ever imagined. She reached out to confess, which surprised me since she hadn't known about me until that point, but then it all came out that she had planned the entire thing. Even with all that betrayal, our divorce was surprisingly smooth. He barely put up a fight, mostly because I had bought almost everything we owned together. Once my lease was up, I packed up and left our apartment behind. I moved about 4 hours away, and because my work is remote now, the transition didn't feel overwhelming at all. Being closer to the people I love has been the best part of the move. As for R and G, they're still together and just had their baby not too long ago. I've made the decision to stop keeping tabs on their lives. Protecting my peace comes first now. Lately, I've been dipping my toes back into the dating world, but nothing serious. Therapy has become a regular part of my routine. Working through the trust issues this whole ordeal created hasn't been easy, and it's a slow journey, but I feel like I'm making progress. Right now, I'm not looking for a serious relationship, and honestly, I'm happy about that. These days, the constant whirlwind of anxiety is gone. I can focus at work again, and the time I spend with my loved ones feels deeper and more meaningful than ever before. Things might seem boring from the outside, but for me, this new calm is overwhelmingly positive. Update 4. My name is 27F, and last year my ex-husband R, to whom I was married for 4 years, cheated on me with G, a friend from college. G ended up pregnant as a result. That betrayal cut deep, and I wasted no time. I left him. After I walked away, he moved in with G and they had their baby. Since then, I haven't kept up with either of them. Frankly, they became ghosts in my life. But the universe has a strange way of serving justice. Turns out, R cheated on G as well. I found out because a mutual friend, someone who still follows G on social media, tipped me off. Apparently, G let everything loose online, publicly exposing all of R's dirty secrets. Honestly, it was one of those posts you read with your mouth hanging open. She went scorched earth and did not hold back. G discovered R had given her an STI. She didn't name which one but implied it was treatable. Despite that, she stayed with him, probably for the baby they just had together. But it gets worse. Later G finds out he'd actually been cheating since before their baby was even born. Then, in the middle of all this, G finds out she's pregnant with baby number 2. She shares the news with R, who apparently was thrilled, and they went out to celebrate. But R got too drunk and started behaving oddly, making some weird fucking comments that gave G a deeply uneasy feeling. The audacity, he'd given G his phone passcode, and while he passed out drunk, curiosity got the best of her. She checked his phone and discovered, direct from G's own words, 2 fucking bitches he was texting in his recent messages. Truth be told, I feel an odd mix of satisfaction and relief. I won't claim G ruined my life, she didn't, even if she set her mind to tearing R and me apart, which she did achieve. Now, she's getting exactly what she chased, a single mother of 2, thanks to clinging so tightly to a man already proven a cheater. Once R got a taste for infidelity, he never stopped, and now G is reaping the storm she helped sow. I genuinely feel sorry for her kids. They'll grow up with a mother who attracts chaos, caught in the fallout of drama they never asked for, and I worry especially for the second baby, who knows what will happen with the STI. My only hope is that R actually takes responsibility for his children. Ironically, R was always wonderful with kids, we even wanted some together at one point. But as for me, I can only say I dodged more bullets than I'll probably ever realize. It feels wrong to admit out loud, even to myself, that I'm happy about this outcome. Still, watching karma work its way through, I can't help but believe the universe finds its own balance. Update 5. I thought I was done with the both of them, truly, I did. But life has a wicked sense of irony. A few nights ago, a friend sent me a photo from someone's story, at what looked like a baby sprinkle, holding a cupcake tower and flashing a ring I would have known in a blind room, oval sapphire, 2 little diamonds flanking it, and that particular slightly too tall prong my grandma used to complain about every time she snagged a sweater. I stared until the screen went dim. Then I went straight to my jewelry roll. Empty slot. I tore through every box I moved with. Nothing. That ring was my grandmother's. When she passed, my mom had the inside engraved with their initials and the year they eloped. I have the appraisal in my email, tucked between tax documents and old airline confirmations. I pulled it up like a lifeline, saw the inscription in black and white, tried to breathe. There it was, the exact engraving I could recite like a prayer. I filed a police report the next morning. I thought I'd feel ridiculous, months later, now living hours away, but the officer who called me back was all business. He asked for photos, receipts, anything. I sent the appraisal, old photos of me wearing it at my graduation. And then, because the universe loves a breadcrumb trail, the detective found the jeweler who resized it. I had dropped it off himself. His actual name, his phone number on the ticket, security camera stills of him at the counter with G beside him, cradling her belly like they were starring in a commercial for happy endings. They set up a meet at the precinct for voluntary return of property. He showed up with G. She had that tired, too pale look I recognized from my worst days last year, and for a second, I almost felt bad for her. He tried to play it smooth, jaw set like he thought this was a negotiation. The detective laid my appraisal on the table and read the engraving out loud. R opened his mouth, closed it. G's head snapped from the paper to the ring and back again. You could see the exact moment she realized the story he'd told her, something about a family piece, was just another lie in his never-ending stack. He tried to offer to buy it back, like it was a Facebook Marketplace lamp and not my grandmother's hand on my finger every time I wore it. The detective didn't blink. Either the ring went into my bag, or it went into evidence and we took the rest to the DA. I slid it on, and my hands didn't shake. In the hallway, G lost it on him. It wasn't a scream, it was that low, devastated anger you only hear when someone's pride finally caves in on itself. I didn't linger, or tried to catch my eye, that same pleading look he wore the day he packed his last box. I walked past without giving him a face to read. On my way home, I stopped at a jeweler in my new city. They cleaned the ring, polished the prongs, tucked it into a little velvet pouch. The woman behind the counter asked if it was special, and I surprised myself by saying yes without the usual ache. That night I put it on a chain and wore it to bed like armor. 2 days later, an email from the detective, case closed, property returned. He attached one last thing, an audio file of ours call, where he tried to argue the timeline, then veered off into excuses about the gym and stress and making stupid choices when you're under pressure. He sounded small. I didn't listen twice. I thought that would be the end of it, a clean cut. Then, this morning, a number I didn't recognize popped up with a text, "I'm sorry." It was G, no preamble, no paragraphs, just those 2 words. I stared at them long enough to feel the weight of every version of me that might have answered. Then I archived the thread and went back to my coffee. Update 6. I really thought the ring was the last chapter. Then a man in a windbreaker knocked on my door just after breakfast and said my full name like he was reading a menu. He handed me a manila envelope and asked me to confirm my DOB. "You've been served," he said, and by the time I'd found my voice, he was already back in his car. It was a 3-day notice to vacate an apartment I've never stepped foot in. My name, my old last name, the last 4 of my SSN, a signature that looked exactly like mine, down to the swoop on the Y I haven't used since college. The address was in our city, 15 minutes from the gym he plasters on everything. I called the number on the letter with my heart sprinting. The property manager was curt until I said the signature was forged. Then she softened like a switch flipped. Within 10 minutes, her email hit my inbox with the lease packet attached. Guarantor, me. Occupant, not me. Proof of income, a doctored bank statement from the joint account we closed last year, with my side blurred to hell and his transaction circled in red like a middle school teacher graded it. And there, tucked at the back, a scan of my passport. I knew it was mine because of the crease across the photo page from that time TSA bent it in Miami. I could smell the old airport coffee as soon as I saw it. I called the detective who handled my ring. He remembered me. "You again," he said, but not unkindly. "Bring everything." I brought the envelope, the lease PDF printed, screenshots of the email headers, the appraisal that had landed us in a room together the last time. They looped in a woman from Financial Crimes who wore her hair in a low bun and had a poker face that could kill. While we talked, the property manager sent over security stills from their hallway cam. The timestamp matched move-in day. R in shorts and a gym hoodie, carrying a neon duffel with his logo. A blonde behind him, not G, holding a tiny dog like a clutch. The woman from Financial Crimes leaned in and zoomed twice. You could see a shipping label on a box at the door. The name wasn't mine. While I was still at the station, my phone buzzed with a new number. The message was longer this time. It was G. "He used your info for everything. I found a folder on his iCloud. Your passport, your social, even a scan of your old driver's license. He told me it was backup for the bank. I'm sorry. She asked if I wanted the files. I told her to send them to the detective. 5 minutes later, the Bun detective had them on her screen. My life laid out in crisp, illegal JPEGs, plus PDFs labeled with other women's names I didn't recognize. She didn't smile, but the energy in the room shifted. Suddenly there was movement. Phone calls, a printer spitting papers like rain. By late afternoon, the Bun detective called. They picked him up at the gym. Between the squat rack and the smoothie bar, she said, dry as toast. He tried to talk his way through it, said I'd given permission, said it was just a misunderstanding with the landlord, said stress, said growth phase, said the kind of words men like him think sound like responsibility. They had the lease with my fake signature and his real name, the hallway footage, the metadata on the scans clean as a whistle. He stopped talking when they got to the part where he used my SSN for a utilities account and a store card I've never owned. They booked him for identity theft and forgery. The property manager rescinded the notice and apologized. She told me, quietly, that the blonde had already moved her stuff out while maintenance was changing locks. She sounded tired. I pictured the tiny dog nosing at a pile of clothes while someone boxed up their life in a silence so loud it rang. I went home and froze my credit, filed the FTC report, called my bank just to hear a human say they'd put a note on my file. Practical things that feel like bailing a boat with a cup, except the water actually went down. That night my grandmother's ring was cool against my sternum, right where it sits on the chain when I lay on my back and stare at the ceiling. I thought about the first time she handed it to me, the way her veins looked like rivers under paper skin, how she laughed when I almost dropped it. I slept anyway. This morning, a collect call from the jail flashed on my phone. I declined without thinking. A minute later, a second text from G. They asked me to come down. I told them everything. Then, like she couldn't help herself, one more, he told her he'd put the ring on layaway. I didn't answer. I put my phone face down and made coffee. When it finished, I opened the kitchen drawer, pulled out my passport, and slid it into a fireproof envelope with the slow satisfaction of someone putting a lid on a jar. The sky outside was that white blue that means noon is coming. There was a knock at the door, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't flinch. It was just the mail. Update 7. On the courthouse steps my phone rang. Bun detective. Do you have 10 minutes? She asked. It turned into 2 hours. They'd executed a warrant on a storage unit registered to one of our shell LLCs. The name was something laughable like Lift Life Holdings, and I still felt myself spit a little at the sound of it. She opened a plastic bin labeled taxes, and the top layer was women, laminated IDs, passport scans, a strip of photos like a sad little yearbook. Mine in the stack, of course, with that TSA bend like a crease in a paperback. Under that, a ziploc of keys on mismatched tags. A gleaming Home Depot brass with my old apartment number scratched into it with something sharp. And then, very bottom, things that didn't belong to anyone but me, my grandmother's velvet ring box, the one with the worn hinge I'd thought I'd lost during the move, old Polaroids of my college graduation, a tiny grocery receipt with her handwriting on the back, lemons, parsley, milk. I was fine until the lemons. They had me sign the chain of custody for what was mine. I took the box, the Polaroids, the stupid grocery slip like a relic. Bun detective watched my face, waited, then pulled one more thing from a manila folder. We got into his iCloud, she said, neutral as ever. It was a screenshot of his camera roll, a photo of my new street sign, taken from the passenger window of a car in the late afternoon. The date stamp was 2 months after I moved. Zoomed, you could see the edge of my building reflected in the glass of a storefront. My stomach did that slow elevator drop. That's why these charges aren't just about paper, she said, and her voice had a temperature now. On my way out, the property manager from the fake lease sent one last email. Jim locks changed, unit reclaimed, we appreciate your cooperation. Attached, a grainy still of him walking away with nothing. The neon duffel was gone. He looked smaller without it, like a kid caught shoplifting. They arraigned him in the same building where I'd reclaimed my name. I didn't go looking, but I didn't avoid it either. The hallway smelled like copier toner and someone's too strong perfume. When they brought him past, he kept his eyes on a spot just over everyone's shoulder like he could will himself into the paint. His hands were cuffed in front and I could see where the metal had reddened his skin. For one absurd half second I thought about taking him a bottle of lotion like we were still sharing a bathroom. The judge set conditions that sounded like lines drawn with a knife. No contact. No exceptions. Passport surrendered. He nodded and looked like nodding hurt. Outside, G sat on a bench with a diaper bag balanced on her knees even though there wasn't a baby in sight. Same tired, too pale look. When she saw me, she stood like she'd made a decision. My mother's picking me up, she said, which I think was another way of saying she wasn't going home to him. She held out an envelope. Inside was a single USB, bright blue, like a toy. Everything I found, she said. For them, not for you. Fair. I handed it off to a uniform by the door, and G watched me do it like she needed to witness the handoff to believe anything good could be real. I went straight to my landlord's office and asked him to rekey my door. He frowned at the street photo like it insulted him personally and had a locksmith at my kitchen table before I'd finished my second cup of coffee. The guy swapped the deadbolt while telling me about a squirrel that had gotten into the attic of a Victorian he was working on. It was absurdly comforting. When he left, I stood in my quiet living room with a new key that bit cleanly into the lock and thought about how I once loved a man who took pictures of my street sign from a moving car. By late afternoon the news had it, local trainer arrested for identity theft, and someone texted me a clip of the gym with the sign coming down in daylight, the outline of the old letters a faint shadow on the paint. The first time I drove past that place, he'd stood under the A like it was a halo. Funny how ghosts hang around on buildings longer than people do. There was one more email from Bun Detective before dinner. They cracked the safe in the storage unit. Inside was cash in rubber bands and a hard drive with the same label as the USB G gave me, plus a document with my name at the top authorizing financial activity in a spiky, practice version of my signature. She attached a photo of it. I traced the ugly swoop of my stolen Y with my finger and felt nothing, like running your thumb over someone else's scar. I ate on the couch with the window open and the kind of sunset that makes your apartment feel like a movie set for a second. The ring sat against my sternum on its chain, warm from my skin. It didn't feel like armor tonight. It felt like jewelry again. When the knock came, two short, one hesitant, I didn't jump. It was my neighbor returning a book, her kid peeking around her leg to ask if my cat could come over sometime. I don't have a cat. He looked offended when I said so, like I denied him a natural law. Maybe someday, I told him, and I meant it in a way that had nothing to do with pets. Update 8. The notification hit at a red light, that exact iPhone gray that looks like bad weather. AirTag found moving with you. For half a second I told myself it was someone's keys in the next lane. Then the light changed and my stomach fell through the floor. I pulled into the first car wash bay I saw and killed the engine. The world went flat and echoey with hose noise. On the screen there was a button, play sound, and when I tapped it, something in my car chirped like a trapped cricket. The sound led me to the trunk. I peeled the liner back and felt ridiculous, like I was playing hide and seek with a ghost. The chirp kept going. Under the spare tire, taped down with blue painter's tape that had collected dust like lint on a sweater, a white disc blinked at me. Sharpie across the plastic. Keys. I held it between my fingers and breathed through that hot, prickly feeling that starts behind your knees. Then I closed the trunk and called Bun Detective. Leave it running? She asked. It won't stop crying, I said, which made her laugh in this small, human way. Sit tight, she told me. 10 minutes later a cruiser slid in behind me and the two of them moved like they'd practiced it. They photographed where I found it, the tape, the serial, my face because she said documentation is boring until it isn't. She dropped it into a bag with the kind of reverence you save for explosives and then she looked at me and I watched the part of her brain that solves puzzles click into place. We're going to the lab, she said. You're going to get yourself a coffee you will not spill. By noon, she was on speaker in my kitchen. Matched to his iCloud, she said, the words spaced out like stepping stones. Paired last month, he named it Keys, which would be funny if it wasn't also so stupid. She didn't say the other thing out loud, but the other thing sat in the room like a third person, the order barring contact, the line drawn with a knife. They moved fast. There was a hearing that afternoon in a courtroom I could find now by the feel of the carpet under my shoes. He came in behind two deputies, no hoodie, no haloing gym logo, just a too big county sweater that turned everyone into the same dull outline. G sat 2 rows back with a stroller and that hollow, washed out look fatigue paints. I didn't sit near her. I didn't sit near anyone. The judge didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. She looked at the bagged AirTag like it was a small animal someone had left in the road. She asked 2 questions, who registered it, and whether there was any plausible reason it had been taped into my car, in my trunk, under my spare. When Bun Detective said his account and no, the temperature in the room shifted by 10 degrees. He tried to say misunderstanding, to string together words like he always had, stress, timing, business, growth, but the syllables sounded like pebbles in a dryer. The judge revoked his bond the same way she might have put a lid on a jar. There was a sound when they closed the cuffs that I felt in my molars. On my way out, Bun Detective fell into step beside me and handed me a card I didn't recognize. Treasury Inspector General, the seal so fussy it looked embroidered. She tipped it with 2 fingers. Safe had some loan paperwork, she said, too casual to be truly casual. Those agencies like to sit for a minute and then they swoop like birds. You'll get a call. At home I took the back seat out of my car with a screwdriver like I was unthreading a knot from the world. There wasn't anything else. The only sound was the click of metal and some kid 2 buildings over practicing trumpet with the confidence of someone who has never met a neighbor. I slid the new deadbolt shut and it made a gasping, greedy sound like it loved its job. G texted me after dinner, a photo of a stack of manila folders with my first name spelled right in black marker. From his closet, she wrote. I don't want them. I sent her Bun Detective's email and then put my phone face down until the surface warmed under it. There's a difference between being kind and feeding a thing you've already decided not to keep. I'm learning where the line is. The treasury card did call. The man on the other end sounded like a principal in a nap. He asked if I had a few minutes to talk about loans I'd never heard of with my name scotch taped to them like a prank. While we spoke, I watched sunlight move across the grout on my kitchen floor and thought about how dry bureaucracy is until it swallows your whole life in one gulp. He used the phrase pattern of conduct and I felt a part of my brain unclench, because a pattern is something you can trace, and things you can trace can be taken apart. Later, my neighbor's kid knocked, 2 knocks that weren't timid, exactly, just hopeful. He held up a flyer because of course he did. The shelter down the street was overrun and needed fosters. The paper was pink like a sunburn. "You said maybe," he said. "About the cat." I heard my grandmother's paper grocery slip in my head, the way she looped her E and lemon like a ribbon, and I thought maybe could be a hinge that opens instead of squeals. The shelter smelled like bleach and warm fur. A volunteer handed me a calico with one ear nicked like a folded page. She tucked her head under my chin and vibrated like a bat engine, and I felt my sternum loosen where the ring sits on its chain. "She's food motivated," the volunteer said, like anyone sane would be. On the intake sheet I wrote the name before I could overthink it. Lemon. It felt like putting a lid on a jar and like prying one open. We went home and Lemon shouldered open the bathroom door with the nose of someone who has never once believed a boundary was about her. She found the sunny square and occupied it with the authority of a queen taking a chair. When my phone chimed again, it was Bun Detective with a photo from evidence, the back of the AirTag peeled like a sticker to show the serial, the words keys in ugly Sharpie, the corner of my spare tire well for scale. "This is the part where I say good job," she wrote, which is as close to tenderness as she gets. I sent her back a picture of Lemon sleeping with one paw over her face like she'd been caught being tender herself. "Nice cat," she replied, and then, because she can't help herself, "Don't let her eat tape." Night came in politely. Somewhere a trumpet hit a note it had no business finding and held it there like a dare. The ring sat warm against my skin. The new lock caught clean. Lemon dreamed on the couch, her whiskers twitching like she was running in place. I stood in my quiet living room and thought about an AirTag chirping in a car wash bay, a judge's voice flattening a stupid little word like misunderstanding into nothing, a future with fewer knocks that make me jump. Lemon opened one eye and blinked at me like I'd been making too much noise with my head. "Okay," I told her, and the room believed me. Update 9. The envelope was smaller this time, cream instead of manila, my name in a thin serif that made it look almost polite. Subpoena. I put on the good pants that don't wrinkle and tied my hair back because it felt like a thing you should do for a room where people swear to tell the truth. The witness room smelled like copier heat and sugared coffee. There were peppermints in a bowl, the dusty kind that shatter into chalk. I swore in, right hand up, my voice doing that steady thing I don't remember teaching it. They wanted bones, dates, places, the way my name looked when it wasn't mine. Bun Detective sat at the back with her expression like a clean countertop. Every time I answered, she tilted her head the tiniest degree. It felt like drawing the same straight line over and over so the paper knows what it's supposed to hold. By lunch the indictment was unsealed. Wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, devices and stalking language so clinical it felt like being diagnosed with a Latin word. Someone texted me a link where he was led across a hallway we both knew, this time in a sweater that made everyone into a lump of laundry. It should have felt like a win. It felt like a lid clicking shut. They hit the gym early the next morning. I didn't go, but a client from the building across the street sent a video they took sideways and too close, a flatbed nosing up to the glass, mirrors leaning like tired men, the rowers standing in a line like they were waiting for a bus. The sign was already gone, the ghost letters were lighter than the paint and for a second it looked like the name had been carved out of air. Lemon sat on the counter and knocked a zip tie to the floor with the kind of concentration you reserve for surgery. When the woman from the U.S. Attorney's office called, her voice was the calm hum of someone who has seen every version of the panic I was trying not to pick at. She said words like restitution and victim notification and then, softer, "We'll put a flag on your file so the next person who tries to make you paper won't get far." I said, "Thank you," and it felt like putting a rock in my pocket. Sentencing wasn't a movie. No banging gavel, no dramatic music swelling under a speech. Just a bright room that made everyone look tired and honest. I brought a single page and held it with both hands so it wouldn't flutter. I said less than I'd written. I said my grandmother's ring like it was a person and the judge nodded like she knew exactly what kind of person that is. I said street sign and she said digital leash and I watched him flinch with one shoulder like a muscle he couldn't control had jumped. He didn't look at me. The number when it came was years, not months, and it landed in the room like a heavy book on a table. The judge stacked conditions afterward like bricks. No contact. No credit. No shortcuts. Somewhere behind me someone breathed out like they'd been waiting underwater. G was there with a diaper bag big enough for a weekend. She didn't try to sit near me. After, on the sidewalk that always smells like hot dog water and dust, she walked up like every step cost something. "I'm moving," she said, and it sounded less like news and more like she was telling me the weather. She didn't ask anything of me this time. No envelopes. No apologies. She just said, "My mother found a place near her," and I said, "Good," and it wasn't mean. We stood there for a second under a tree that didn't know any of us and then she walked toward a car seat and a woman with her same mouth. It felt like watching a boat push off. You don't clap. You let it happen. In the middle of all of it, like the last hiccup of an old storm, Vital Records sent a skinny letter with a red stamp on the top. Someone had requested a replacement birth certificate in my name from a county I've never lived in. The date was 2 weeks after I moved the first time. We had a hold, the clerk said when I called, efficient and faintly proud. Nothing went out. I thanked her like she'd saved a life, because maybe that's what it was. Bun detective called 5 minutes later as if the wires ran under both our chairs. Old request, she said. You're sealed up like a jar now. I could hear paper sliding into folders on her side. Somewhere a printer chattered and stopped. The federal man with the embroidered seal card pinged me with the kind of email that makes your inbox feel formal. He used the phrase acceptance of responsibility and later, down the page, a line about payment schedules that looked like math I could live with. I printed it and slid it into the drawer with my passport and the fireproof envelope and closed it with my whole palm. At home, I took the chain off for the first time in months and laid my grandmother's ring in the velvet box from the storage unit, the hinge still complaining like an old friend. Lemon watched me with that flat squint cats have when they're trying to decide if what you're doing is food. She's small but she makes the couch look like it belongs to her by right. The trumpet kid across the way found a note and hung onto it until it turned into something else. I made pasta because that's what you do when your body needs proof that things can be simple and good at the same time. That night, because I could, I walked to the corner and back with my keys in my left hand and nothing in my right. Streetlights did their quiet, boring job. My lock turned like it had been greased while I was out. Lemon skittered to the door and then acted like she hadn't been waiting. I put the ring back on the chain and it felt like jewelry again, not armor, cool for a second, then warm. I said okay into my own kitchen, not to anyone else, and the room believed me.